What's going on, Pro Dreams family? So today we actually took a little road trip down to Middle Georgia State University, and we're going to be interviewing my good friend and fraternity brother Darious Dennard, who I'll refer to as Coach D. So Coach D agreed to meet us here because he lives in South Georgia. We're coming from Atlanta, and just to kind of make things a little bit easier, we decided to meet in the middle. And it just so happens that he used to coach here at Middle Georgia State University. So I'm really excited about today's interview. I really want y'all to pay close attention to what Coach has to say. He has a lot of experience in the game, coaching at both the high school and the college level. Some of the topics we'll be covering today are the recruiting process, the different levels of play, the visitation process, and we'll also do some Q&A with Coach D to kind of get a feel for what are some good questions that you should be asking your coaches. So without any further ado, we'll hear from the man himself.
Coach D.
What's going on?
How you doing, man?
Good.
Good to see you, brother. It's
Yes.
always a pleasure.
Likewise.
I appreciate you for being willing to meet us halfway, instead of having us drive all the way down to South Georgia, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for today's interview, I'm really excited about just hearing from you and your experience as a high school and college basketball coach. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is just a small icebreaker.
Okay.
And so what that consists of is I'll just say a word or a phrase, and then you tell me how you think that relates to a student athlete.
All right, let's do it.
So the first word or phrase is work ethic.
Work ethic. In order to be successful at the college level, you need a high work ethic. Because a lot of it is you get your development with your coaches, but they also entrust that responsibility for you to develop your game as well on your own time. So you need a strong work ethic.
Okay. Friends and peers.
I feel like friends and peers can either make or break you. You hang around the wrong crowd, and there's a good chance you're gonna lose your opportunity. You hang around the right crowd that keep you motivated, keep you straight in the classroom, keep you straight on the court, then that lends to your chance of being successful.
And then lastly, academics.
The foundation. Because without grades, you don't play. That's just short and sweet, simple. Without the grades, you don't play.
That's what you're there for, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So just tell us a little bit more about yourself, D. Where you from, your background, what kind of things you like to do for fun.
Okay. Originally from Eastman, Georgia, Dodge County, which is literally about 10 minutes away from here where we are right now. Played a little ball in high school, went to Vassell State for college. Major,
where we met.
Right? That's where we met. Major was health and PE. During my major, I made the decision that I knew I wanted to coach afterwards. So I sought out a volunteer opportunity, was able to work with Coach Rufus McDuffie at Vassell High for 2 years. That opportunity led me to Middle Georgia College at the time. Started here in 2010. We were junior college at first, saw Coach here for 2 years, then we transitioned to NAIA, stayed here until 2016. In 2016, moved back to Vassell, because I got married. Got a job with Vassell City Schools again, was able to coach Vassell High again with Coach Haynes then, Coach Antonio Haynes. So I did that for 3 years. And then after that, in 2019, last year, my first year head coach at Brooks County High School, which is where I am now. So yeah, it's been a journey, man.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's dope. So having so much experience, coaching the game, what would you say you think are 3 good qualities that kids should look for in like a good college coach?
First thing, you want somebody that's honest. Now the caveat to that is in order to, you got to be able to handle that honesty as well. You don't, and in my eyes, I feel like you don't want a coach that's gonna sugarcoat everything or kind of, feed you little stuff here and there. You want to up front and tell you what it is. So that'll be number 1, be honest. Number 2 is be somebody that really cares about you as a person, not just as an athlete. We tell athletes all the time, you use the basketball, don't let the basketball use you. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you don't want college just to feel like I was there just for that and that's it. You don't get anything out of it. Your goal should be whoever you invest that time with and plan for 4 years, that should be somebody that you can call on for life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the other part. And then the third part, when looking for a coach to play for, I would say somebody that's demanding.
Okay.
That's gonna push you past your limits that you thought you had, and really see your potential and strive to get all that out of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, those are 3 good qualities. I agree with you on those. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna move into the first segment where we're gonna talk about recruiting.
Okay.
All right. So. Of course, in order to make it to the next level, you have to get recruited, unless you walk on, but in most cases, you need to get recruited. And I was reading a statistic on the NCAA website that said that only 3.5% of high school students actually make it to the collegiate level. And of that 3.5, they even broke it down a little bit further. 1% make it to D1, 1% to D2, and then the other 1.5 to D3. So with those statistics in mind, you know, it lets us know it's not that easy to make it to the next level.
Right.
So what things can young players do to start getting themselves, you know, prepared for that and to get recruited?
First key, be grades. The higher your grades, the more scholarships and financial aid you qualify for, the easier it is on the athletic budget to sign you or offer you a scholarship. Meaning, I don't have to invest a whole lot of money in order for you to be able to afford coming to my school. So that's number one. Also for eligibility purposes. I mean, so you gotta have the grades first. Number 2 would be, I feel like early on in the process, probably no later than 10th grade. No later than 10th grade. When I say you, I mean the student athlete, your parents, your coaches, whether it be high school and AAU, if you're doing both, y'all need to sit down as a collective group and come up with a game plan. And that game plan needs to start looking at, okay, what level do you feel like you can play at or best fits your talents? Okay, what schools at that level do we need to start researching and looking out to and trying to establish contact and build a relationship with? Now, the earlier you start that process, the better. Because a lot of recruiting is relationships, you know what I'm saying? Coaches value words from other coaches that they know, whether it be high school or other college coaches. So that's not something that happens overnight. You know, if you wait until your 12th grade year to finally get started, you kind of just throwing darts, you know what I'm saying, hoping to hit the bullseye. You know, so you want to get started in that process early. And then mainly learning how to use social media to your advantage.
Okay.
So those would be the top 3 things I would suggest.
Okay, so let's talk about the social media a little bit more. You say using that to their advantage. What does that look like?
Okay, number 1 issue I see with social media and the younger generation nowadays is the social media friends list is usually their friends. Okay, so when you post your highlight tape or your game film, whatever, only your friends are gonna see it. And of course, they gonna tell you, you know what I'm saying, oh man, you good, you nice, and D1 for sure, and yada, 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 but you're not receiving any real feedback from people that are in the profession. So your friends list on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, needs to be college coaches in order to increase your chances of being seen, you know what I'm saying? And then, and if one coach sees you, then, you know what I'm saying, you kind of start the snowball effect. Because a lot of recruiting is relationships and coaches talk among each other. Another thing would be making sure your social media is clean.
That's big.
No explicit material, I'm just gonna say that. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules. Some coaches, not a big deal. Some coaches automatically X off the list. And you know what I'm saying? At that time when you're trying to get recruited, you don't want to get crossed off anybody's list for any other reason. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Outside of basketball or you know, whatever your chosen sport. So those are the top 2 things when I say about using social media effectively.
Okay. And so just from your opinion, what can a player do to actually get a coach to, I guess, follow him back? Because I'm sure, you know, you could go online and follow Coach K, but like, you know, what will it take to get them? Or maybe that's a stretch, like Coach K.
Yeah.
Let's just say a college coach reach out, you know, follow them and get them to actually, like, you know, follow you back.
I think most coaches typically follow everybody back. Especially speaking in Twitter terms, most coaches typically follow everybody back. If not, then, you know, I don't think it would be too far of a stretch, you know, maybe send a DM, say, hey coach, you know, this is who I am. Right. I would appreciate the follow back. If not, this is my highlight tape, these are my stats, this is my way to get in contact with me, you know, so forth and so on. Because some coaches just may not be as technologically savvy as some of the others.
That's true.
But that's pretty much it.
Okay, got you. So, Coach, during your time here at Middle Georgia when you were coaching, did you have any opportunities to do recruiting? And if you did, what things were you looking for in your player when you were in the recruiting process?
I did a lot of recruiting. That was one of my primary responsibilities. So had a chance to get on the road, high school games. At my time at Middle Georgia, we didn't really focus as much on AAU, just because we were a small staff and that was a big task. You know, you go to these AAU tournaments and they got games on 10 courts. Well, if I'm the only assistant there, you know, it's kind of fishing in the dark, you know what I'm saying? So as far as really trying to evaluate talent. Now, my approach back then would, I preferred going to high school games. Who I went to go see would be, obviously who has a buzz, you know, you see names out, you know what I'm saying? So you wanna go see those kids. If other coaches recommended me or advised me, especially higher level coaches, because at the time when we first started Middle Georgia Junior College, little known thing about that is all athletes are junior college athletes until you get a qualifying SAT score.
I did not know that.
So until you get that score, you're a junior college athlete. So that means don't try to big time, because that may be where you end up, you know. So just want to add that in there. But back then, say like a Division II school like Georgia Southwestern or something, you know, they happened to see a kid and they was like, well, I don't think he could play for us, but you know, they may call me and say, hey, you need to go take a look at him. So you know, that's how it works behind the scenes. So though I would always go see those as well. So typically with a high school game, I would let the coach know that I'm coming. I may or may not let the kid know that I'm coming. If we already have a relationship, I may say, hey, I'm coming to this game. If it's my first time, I'm typically not gonna let them know, because I didn't want no added pressure. And I didn't want them going out there, oh, this college coach here to see me, I need to try to drop 50. When my vision for you is, I just need you to get up there and rebound, you know what I'm saying, block shots, get a couple putbacks, or if you're a guard, I just want to see how well you distribute the basketball. You know, so those type of things. You don't want them trying to play out of their element. But a lot of recruiting just came down to fit. I used to have plenty of names or films come across my desk where I was like, the kid can really play, you know, but will he fit in what my head coach was looking for and the system that we're playing? So, you know, that's kind of where it takes a little look as far as from the student athlete standpoint. You know, you really need to take some initiative and research your program, not only the school, but the style of play, because you don't want to waste your time trying to get recruited by some school that does not fit your style of play, so you're not really gonna get to show your full potential and your talents, and then it ends up being a frustrating situation where you possibly don't get your scholarship renewed after a year, and now you sitting home.
All right, Coach, so one of the things you mentioned earlier, you talked about everybody kind of being involved in the recruiting process, AAU coach, high school coach. So kind of talk a little bit about that, like everybody's role, you know, the player, the parents, the AAU coach, the high school coach, everybody's role in helping to get recruited.
Okay. Kind of just go back to the old phrase, teamwork makes the dream work. Because it is a lot to put on one person. And now that I'm a high school coach, I hear, you know, all the time about people always want to blame the high school coach when a kid doesn't get recruited. Okay, well, as a high school coach, we cannot force a college coach to sign your son or daughter to a scholarship. You know, the only thing we can do is make a recommendation. So if you kind of look at it as kind of like a job interview process, you want to send out your application or your resume to as many coaches as you can. Okay. Now, as far as the AAU and high school coach, look at them kind of as your references. Okay. You know, so the parent and the kid, I feel like, need to do the majority of the leg work as far as reaching out. Okay. Now, obviously, the AAU and high school, if they have relationships with other coaches, then they're going to use that relationship to their advantage and push out word as well. But when it comes back, AAU and high school coach, like I said, are kind of like the references. So it's their job to, quote unquote, sell the student athlete and tell the coaches why they would be a good fit or not for their program. And then that way, like I said, it doesn't get to be too big of a task with one person. You get more done. You're able to reach out to more colleges. You're able to get more feedback. And then if you start early enough, you can even get feedback onto, as well as maybe what you need to work on this season or in the coming up years in order to be a athlete at that school.
So, Coach, that was some really good, helpful information, I feel like, regarding recruiting. So we'll move into our next section, which is the different levels of play. I think it's helpful for the student athletes to be educated on the two different basketball associations, the NAIA and the NCAA, and then also the different divisions within them. So can you just kind of talk about those a little bit?
Okay. Typically, everybody knows about NCAA. NCAA is the largest governing body for college athletics. It has 3 different divisions: D1, D2, and D3. Typically, the talent level for Division I is the higher level. I ain't gonna say high, but the higher level of talent. Division II has, you have, even though it's all Division II, you still have kind of like your upper echelon and lower echelon of Division II and Division III as well. The biggest difference is obviously exposure as far as on the national scale, and then Division III is not able to offer athletic scholarships. Now, they may have academic scholarships or grants or specific scholarships at their school that go towards athletes.
Okay.
But they are not allowed to have just quote unquote athletic scholarship. That's the only issue. So there's still financial aid available at their level as well. Now, NAIA is a different governing body, and they have 2 divisions, Division I and Division II. If you want to get a feel for it, top NAIA Division I program is probably on the same level talent-wise as a upper level Division II.
Okay.
And the thing about NAIA is its academic requirements and eligibility requirements aren't as strict as the NCAA D1 and D2. So that's where you see, like, a lot of times, even people that were D1 talent or high D1, D2 talent, they end up playing NAIA. It's easier to stay eligible.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? Or if you had case-by-case situation where you may have had to take a semester off for school or something like that, like, it's real tough to get back eligible for NCAA, but it's a lot easier to do it for NAIA. So that's where you see the talent get mixed in at.
Okay, appreciate that, Coach. And so can you talk a little bit about maybe some misconceptions that student athletes may have about playing junior college or D2, D3?
I think the number one thing is I see it on social media a lot, like D1 or bust. Like, if I don't go D1, like, I'm nothing. No, like, we talking about 3%. Like you said earlier, 3% play college athletics, period. You know what I'm saying? So you should be fortunate to be in that 3% regardless of what level it is. I really like what Corey Black has done for the game of Georgia basketball, but his mantra is D-free. So we don't get caught up in levels. We just trying to go whoever gonna provide it for free. So that is the ultimate goal. Don't get caught up in levels. Cause the thing about it, if you can play, the opportunities will find you. There are people that have went to the NBA from Division II, from NAIA. There are people that have plenty of people that play overseas from Division II, NAIA, or Division III, or whatever. So the opportunities will find you if you can really produce. So I think those are the 2 main misconceptions. Just like D1 is just the holy grail and way better than everything else. When actuality, I know some D2s that can probably beat some D1s. I know some NAIA that can probably beat some D1s or at least give them a run for their money. So it does not mean that you go to a lower level that you're any worse of a player or anything like that.
What about prep school? What are your thoughts on maybe going to prep school route?
Prep school has become the kind of newest trend or whatever, I guess, for people to get that extra year without burning college eligibility. If done correctly, it can be a great benefit. My only personal issue with prep school is that they're kind of not really governed by an association, so there aren't really a uniform set of standards or so to speak. And sometimes you have some prep schools that are basically just frauds. I had a situation in my time coaching at Vassell where a new prep school was supposed to have been started out of Albany. Quote unquote signed one of our players, paid his fees, and was ready to move in. Actually went to move in and got there, and it's an abandoned house. And the guy who supposedly started just money scam. And so you have to be very careful of those because it's easily done. And usually how they do it is they say you're taking classes at this college, where all you're doing is just taking online class, and then they say they have on-campus housing or apartments nearby, which anybody can, lease an apartment. And then it looks and feels like a real school, create you a schedule, plan local junior colleges or other prep schools, and you would think if you don't do the proper research that it's the real thing. But so that happens more than I would like to see, where people all across the country get scammed with stuff like that. But on the good side, if you go to a reputable prep school, maybe you're a high school athlete that just needed to get stronger, maybe you just needed to increase your IQ with the game, or something minor. So that could be a great situation for you to go and learn more, develop more physically, because that's always a struggle for freshmen. It's just so much different coming in as a 17, 18-year-old kid going against 19, 20, 21-year-old grown men, grown men who've had, full weight training and all that sort of stuff. So your body has to adjust. So that's where prep school can be a real benefit. Similar to junior college. When you go to junior college, you get 2 years of eligibility to play. And then the goal after that is to find a 4-year institution. So again, sometimes you go to junior college, maybe you just need to academically, you weren't ready to be admitted into an NCAA level school. So you need to go to junior college, get your grades right, get you an associate's degree, so then you can transfer out, or maybe you just got overlooked, or there were some things you need to work on in your game. So you get those 2 years, work on those, and hopefully you achieve your goal.
It seems like there's a new wave now of student athletes actually skipping the collegiate level and just either going to play ball overseas or going straight to the G League. What are your thoughts on that?
If you're talented enough and fortunate enough to be offered the opportunity to go ahead and become a professional athlete straight out of high school, then you should take the opportunity. Number one, you only have a limited amount of time you can play this game anyway, like physically. Your body can only take so much. So you want to maximize that as quickly as you can. Personally, I feel like with the affordability and availability of online classes and stuff now, if getting a degree is truly on your heart, you can always find ways to do that, alternative ways to do that other than going to college. And then lastly, I think it will become a plus because those high-level guys like case in point, Kentucky, like John Wall, Boogie Cousins, all the guys that did one and done, the one and dones, they were essentially holding or taking up a spot for somebody else that probably would have gone to Kentucky for 4 years. Yeah, that's a good point. But they already knew they were only going for 1 year. Let's be honest, they probably were not really focused on academics anyway. I think the story or the rumor is Ben Simmons didn't go to any classes. He dropped out of school as soon as the season was done. So, but that money that they put in Ben could have been, the next Fred Van Fleet or someone, who stayed all 4 years and who was really a pillar for the program. So I think it just opens up more opportunities for more people to get Division I, and then it kind of creates a trickle-down effect. You have some guys that probably could have went D1 but didn't have the opportunity, didn't have enough spots or whatever. Now they move up. Now that opens up spots at D2. Now that opens up spots at NAI, that sort of thing. So that's how I view it.
So as you know, there are unofficial visits and then there are official visits. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two and what's permissible for each one? So
for official visits, you get a set number that you can take. Okay. That is allowed by the NCAA, okay? With unofficial visits, you pretty much can take as many as you would like because you're not receiving any benefit, anything like that. Yeah. So I guess the plus to unofficial visits is those are your opportunities to do your own research because you don't have a limit on how many you can take. So you can go to as many schools as you want, try to get a sit down with the coaching staff, get a feel for the environment. Another thing about visits, I always encourage players or even when I was coaching here, our recruits to try to come while school is in session. Because, as a recruiter, my job is to sell the school and kind of convince you as to why it's such a great situation for you. But when you come on your visit, I want you to get a real feel for it. So my golden rule in recruiting, I never wanted to mislead a kid or their parents, never. So when you come on your visit, I want you to see that it's everything that I'm telling you it is. You know what I'm saying? Because just use the example of if you go for a visit during the college spring break, okay? None of the students are there, so there's really nobody you can talk to get a real feel for its campus life. It may be a very select few of basketball players there, so that you can talk to and get a feel for, okay, how is coach? How's our practice schedule? How's the downtime? You know, those sort of things. So that's why it's important to try to get your visits when school is in session, so you can get an accurate feel for the atmosphere. Because you're making an investment, because that's somewhere you're potentially going to be for the next 2 to 4 years. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable in that decision.
So what about interest and offers? You know, you hear a coach may say they're interested in a kid and they get the wrong impression. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Number one thing for student athletes and their parents or their recruiting team is, until they put a dollar amount on it, treat it as interest. Yeah, you're grateful for the interest, but do not, I guess, count a bird in hand until they put a dollar amount on it. I see that kind of drive people decisions. They coaches start talking to them, yeah, we like you, and then, you know, they kind of get tunnel vision on that one and disregard other opportunities that may become available. But then, like you said, it could be last minute, where in actuality, I made you feel like you were a number 1 recruit, but you were number 3 on my board. So number 1 and number 2 said, yeah, we coming, coach. Nah, sorry.
Wow.
You know, and you were all gung-ho about coming to play for my school and my institution, and now, you know, it was just interest. So that's the number 1 rule. Interest, I mean, interest leads to offers. Okay, so we have to generate interest first, and then, but do not limit yourself on how much interest you create. It kind of goes back to what I just said about, you know, getting focused on one opportunity. You know, you want as many people coming and looking at you as you can, and then hopefully one school, you know, puts an offer on the table. But until they put a dollar amount on it, it's not an offer.
Gotcha. So as interest started to turn into offers, you know, for a student athlete, would you say it's ever too early to commit?
I don't think it's too early to commit, because now it's become a lot more acceptable for student athletes to commit and then decommit and open up their recruitment, that sort of thing. So it's not as frowned upon as it was, say, 5 or 6 years ago, you know, when I was at the college level. So I wouldn't say it's too early to commit. Now, with that being said, you don't want to wait too late either. So case in point, if this is your senior year and you're in season, or winding down your season, and you've only got 1 or 2 offers from low-level schools on the table, then it makes no sense for you to sit there and tell them, I'm waiting on a D1 offer.
Right.
Like that's just unrealistic. And unfortunately, that happens more than anything. Kids, you know, it's okay to be confident, but you got to be realistic. You know, if no D1 schools are talking to you, or you haven't got any feedback from them, you know, then we need to put that on the back burner for now. You know, let's be realistic. Let's go who wants you. And that's one thing I preach to my athletes. You know, we have dreams, but if the mantra is D-free, then we go on to who wants us, and that's it. So.
All right, Coach. So now let's talk a little bit about the different types of scholarships that can be offered to a student athlete. Well, first I want to say that, again, looking at the NCAA website, only 2%. So we said earlier, 3% make it to college to play. 2% get offered scholarships. So then there's a whole nother, you know, group of folks that don't get any kind of scholarship. I just want to put that out there. But let's just kind of talk a little bit about the different types: a full scholarship, a partial scholarship, and then I don't know if there's such a thing as a walk-on scholarship. Maybe you can talk about that too.
Okay. Starting off with full, and that's tricky, because schools will use the term full, but the school's term definition of full may be different than what the public definition of full is. So I'm gonna break that down. My terminology I would use a true full. Okay. True full means we're covering all your expenses, okay, and any financial aid or grants that you get all of that back to yourself to do with as you please. Okay, that is a true full. You don't have to come out of pocket for anything except for the admission fees and application fees, because those have to be paid before your scholarship actually kicks in. So just be mindful of that. You do have to pay for those. Now, most people terminology of a full means we're going to use a combination of athletic scholarship aid and your financial aid and grant money to cover all of your expenses. So yeah, you won't have to come out of pocket for anything, but you're not getting all of that excess money back either. That's going to be applied to your account. So case in point, let's just say school A's tuition for a full calendar year, fall and spring semester, is $10,000, okay? And you qualify for full Pell, which is probably about $5,500, rough estimate. And then let's just say you get $2,500 in Hope for the full calendar year. That means the school is only on, well, that means you have a balance of, do my math, it's $2,000 left for the year, okay? So the coach may say, all right, we'll give you a full worth $2,000. You know what I'm saying? He can use the terminology full because everything's fully covered, you know what I'm saying? But again, he's only putting $2,000 just to finish off that last little bit of your balance. So any extra spending money, you know, that'll be, you gotta find other ways for that. Okay, so those are the main two. So when talking with coaches, talking to recruiters, we have to be very, very specific in looking at the dollar amount compared to the tuition fees and that sort of thing. Or maybe just ask, say, if I have my own financial aid and grant money, will I get that back or will that be applied? And that usually clarifies between the two right there, depending upon that answer, okay? Then you have partials. So using the same example of school A, you know, you got 55, you got the 25, so the $2,000 that's left, you know what I'm saying? Or the coach may say, well, we'll give you $1,000, you know, so that would be considered partial. I'm paying part of your expenses, you know what I'm saying? So that varies as how much they want to offer you on that. Walk-ons, some schools do have, I guess, quote unquote, walk-on scholarships, but typically a walk-on means I'm offering you an opportunity to be a part of my program and be a part of the team, but I'm not giving you any money. You know what I'm saying? So that's typically what that means. And then those are pretty much the gist of the different types of offers that can come about. Now, with the walk-on offer, you may start off as a walk-on, meaning no money, but you have the opportunity to earn scholarships later on. I know at Middle Georgia, that was one thing that we kind of really looked into, you know what I'm saying? A kid that we liked, you know, but we liked someone else better, but we knew if they didn't have many other opportunities, we can give you a walk-on spot. You come here, you show us you're dedicated, you know what I'm saying? You buy into what we're doing. We've had plenty of walk-on players got put on scholarship later on, and even became key players for us. When we made a run to the conference championship in 2016. On that team, I think we had a starter who was a walk-on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So that he shows you. So, you know, you talked a little bit about the different types of scholarships. Are they year to year, or are they like, you know, when a coach offers you a scholarship, is it for the full term you're there? Like, how does that work?
Great question. Scholarships typically are year to year. It's like a year-to-year contract. So typically how that works is, now, back up, some D1s, I would assume like the higher, you know, Kentucky's, Dukes and all that, they probably would be able to offer you a scholarship all 4 years guaranteed. You know, that just goes over looking over your grant and aid packet. Okay. That's what you officially sign. But typically, scholarships are year to year. So you come in, you do your year, at the end of that year before you go home for the summer or what have you, you know, typically we have what we call exit meetings where we sit down and talk about the coaching staff, how we felt you performed as a player that year on and off the court, and you kind of give us some feedback, what you thought, how you feel about the program, whatever, and then we leave off with, okay, are we offering you a renewal of your scholarship for the next year or not? Unfortunately to say, sometimes people only play 1 year. I mean, for whatever reason, maybe you didn't produce between the lines like we thought. Could be academics. That's usually the number one reason, academically. But you know, for a variety of reasons. But granted, we may or may not have to give you a reason. It could just be, we just don't think it'll work, and wish you the best. And, if you need any help finding somewhere else to play, then, reach out to us. And it's just as simple as that, That's just the business side of it, So I always go into the understanding of it that my scholarship is year to year. It could get taken from you at any time, So you have to be mindful of that and act and play accordingly. So.
Got you. All right. So, Coach, earlier you mentioned about grant aid. So can you kind of talk a little bit more about grant aid and letter of intent and the difference between the two?
Okay. The key thing is grant and aid is your financial package. Okay, that is going to tell you how much scholarship money you get, if you offer the scholarship. So that's the most important thing. All the letter of intent is doing is saying, I intend to come to your school and I'm not going to talk to anybody else. So just be mindful when you sign that. That's typically what you're signing. You're signing away the opportunity to still talk to other schools and get other scholarship offers. So that's where it may become, I think what you were alluding to earlier about committing too early, where you cut off all your other opportunities. So if you can, if a school, and from the business side, a school typically not going to offer you a grant and aid without you signing the letter of intent, because that kind of safeguards them from having to worry about you pulling out at the last minute. But if you are fortunate enough, you created some leverage, you kind of got the ball in your court. If you're fortunate enough, I would recommend only signing the grant and aid.
Okay.
Because once you sign that, they have to honor that. So they have to keep that money available for when you finally make your decision. So that way you can kind of have control over your situation. Now, everybody's not gonna be that fortunate. I'm gonna say that and just be blunt and honest with you. Everybody's not gonna be that fortunate. But just understand the difference between the two and what they really mean.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition into like a little role play. And so what I'm going to assume the role of a student athlete, and then you're going to assume the role of the coach. So I'll just be like, hey, coach, ask you a question. And then I just want you to say why you think that's a good question for me to ask a college coach. Okay? All right, so the first one is, coach, what position will I be playing on your team?
Okay. Reason why that's a good question is because now you get an understanding as to what the coaching staff's expectations are of you. You don't want to go into a situation thinking you're going to be point guard and you're going to have the ball all the time when they're looking at you as a 2 or maybe a 3 because you can shoot the ball well. Gotcha. And so now you get there, you think, oh, I'm finna be the man. I'm gonna be able to do my thing like James Harden, and then it's like, nah, I need you to run the wing, and what I'm saying, when they play zone or we come off the screen, I need you to hit that shot, what I'm saying? So that kind of balances out your expectations so you know what to expect. So you always want to have that understanding going into it as well.
All right, coach, so the next one is, what other players that are currently at the school play my position, and what other players are you currently recruiting that also play my position?
Okay, that's very important because then you can understand, first off, where you are on the recruiting board, so your priority level to that school. If you're low on their board, that's just interest, what I'm saying? So that means you definitely keep your other options open, If they tell you you're my #1 recruit, okay, you can feel a little bit more confident that they may offer, but still keep your other options open. As far as asking what other players are already on the roster at that position, that kind of lets you know what competition you have. And then you can also kind of set expectations as far as financial aid money. Okay. Because if they already have 2, using the example of a point guard, they already have 2 point guards in front of you, one's a senior, one's a junior. Typically, unless you just come in and just blow it out the water, they're going to get the fulls or the part, or, the bigger part of the money. So that means you're going to be left with some leftovers. Now, if you go to a situation where they got a lot of money to spread out, saying great, but just kind of be mindful of that, especially if they have not put an offer already on the table to tell you exactly how much you're gonna get. You can kind of use that to judge and see what you should be expecting, what I'm saying, and kind of create your leverage.
Okay, so coach, will I get to play my first year, or are there chances that I might get redshirted?
That's another great question. Again, about knowing expectations for what the coaching staff has for you. And then also, so you can be realistic about it as well. I know, of course, you coming from high school, senior year, you probably the man on your team, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe even the man in your area, you know what I'm saying? But then when you get to college, it may just be like, well, we kind of really see you as a backup right now, because again, I got upperclassmen that already know what we do and how we play. So you really only looking at maybe 10, 15 minutes a game, you know? And sometimes, if you know it ahead of time, you can prepare for it, you know? But if you don't know and you get there and you're expecting to be the man again, that can lead to some unhappiness, some frustration, which could in turn jeopardize your chances of being offered scholarship again the following year. You know, I've seen that happen. You know, kids have their own, I guess, expectation of how they feel like things should go, or own vision for how they feel like things should go, and they get there and it's nothing like that. You know, but at the same time, sometimes you have to understand you got to wait your turn. Yeah. You know, you kind of got to wait your turn. So it may start off rocky, but it may get better. You know, or it may just be a situation where you get there and be like, well, I don't see this getting any better. Let me go find a better fit. So I think it just all goes back to having the most information you can to make the best decision for you and your situation.
Sure, no, that makes sense, Coach. Now, I just wanted to share a little bit on that topic of redshirt. As you know, my brother Vassell, he when he was recruited to Florida State, at first there were talks of potentially redshirting Devin, and he was like adamant, like, I am not going to be redshirted. And so, you know, his first year down there, he put the work in, you know, getting extra shots in before and after the game, and as a result, you know, they didn't redshirt him. And so I just wanted to put that out there because, you know, if a coach does tell you that they plan to redshirt you, it's not the end of the world. There is still a chance for you to go out here and prove yourself to get you a spot. So I just wanted to make sure I share that with you.
And I'm gonna add to that. That's a great story. Sometimes you may be in a conversation of redshirt and you outwork expectations, so now we can't afford to redshirt you. And sometimes it may just be going back to the scenario I said earlier about having a junior and senior. I don't want to use your eligibility right now because I feel like you may be the face of the program in the future. Gotcha. So if you're okay with me redshirting you, we can sit this year out. My senior graduates, my junior will be the senior next year. So that means you only got 1 year to sit behind somebody, so to speak. So now you got 3 years to quote unquote have the keys to the car. You know, so it kind of got to weigh the pros and cons to that as well, you know, so
True.
Both sides.
It's all about waiting your turn, huh?
That's right.
All right, Coach, so my next question is, when does the head coach's contract end and how long does he plan to stay here?
That's a good question because a lot of times as athletes and as coaches, you know, when I'm speaking from an assistant coach right now, assistant college coach, if I'm recruiting you, me and you have a relationship.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we may bond, we may have common interests, that sort of thing. And then you kind of really develop with like, hey, I'm really rocking with coach, I want to go play for him. You know, but asking that question lets you kind of get a feel for if that coach may be around for your career and you play for that coach. The general rule of thumb, now getting back to from high school standpoint, the general rule of thumb is when you commit to go play for a school, you really need to be committed to play for the school because coaches change.
Gotcha.
And you may or may not know. You know, I just a quick backstory, had that happen with a player from Vassell. He committed to a Division II school, was all set to go. Sudden coaching change late in the summer. So at that time, the new coach they brought in, he had previously been recruiting players from his old school, so he was trying to bring all of those new recruits with him. And he told my guy, he was like, nah, sorry, I don't want you. You know, and unfortunately, that's the hard business side of it. And so he just kind of lost the opportunity and had to go somewhere else. And then also, you don't want to get into the situation, well, I shouldn't say you don't want to, but you have to be mindful of, if you're only committed to a school to play for that coach, then what is your plan if that coach leaves or gets fired? Are you willing to stay and give the next person a chance? Or are you gonna follow your coach? Now you get into the issue of, I gotta sit out a year, that sort of thing. So you kind of got to weigh all the options as well. So that's why that question is important, because, and then especially when you got an older coach, he may be on the verge of retirement, and here you are thinking, coach gonna be my coach for 4 years, and he got 2 years left. That would be good information to know. So again, trying to gather as much information you can in order to make the best decision.
Gotcha. So coach, if in the event that the head coach does move to another school, will my scholarship still be intact?
That would be a question for the athletic director.
Okay.
That's the only person that can answer that question.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Coach, if I'm seriously injured, to impact my ability to play the game, who is responsible for like medical expenses and things like that?
I think that question would be for the athletic director as well.
Okay.
Coaches may be able to answer, but as far as really getting down to the details, because schools are required to have athlete insurance. But my understanding is that's secondary. So your personal insurance will kick in first, then they pick up what they don't. But as far as getting down to the real details as a specific dollar amount, then that way you need to talk to the medical staff, the athletic trainer, and the athletic director.
So coach, when student athletes are looking for colleges that they want to potentially play at, what other things besides just like the school name should they be looking at to consider whether they want to actually go there or not?
My advice is you have to start with what's important to you as the student athlete. And what I mean by that is, do I have to play somewhere close where my family can come see me play, or where I can go home easily? I don't want to be too far away from home. Is that a top priority to me? Is it a top priority that there are things to do on campus or either in the surrounding city, where there are a lot of activities, movie theater, mall, maybe beach or whatever. So that sort of stuff. Is the academic programs a top priority? Do they offer my major, or is that I'm kind of undecided, willing to go anywhere, so those are factors as well. The type of campus, is it a diverse campus? Is it HBCU? Is it predominantly white? Does that even matter to you? Does it matter that the campus kind of seems like a family atmosphere, or does it matter that the campus really just business? Everybody just kind of go to class and go back to their room, that sort of thing. So all of those factors are different per student athlete, but it's kind of just come down, you have to prioritize what's important to you, and then kind of tailor your search to include all of that.
Yeah, no, I wanted you to bring that up, coach, because I think as a player, it's important to know all that goes into it, right?
Yes.
When you go to the school, it may be the best coach, it may be the best fit for you as far as like between the lines, like you said. But then when you're outside of the lines, you're miserable because the campus isn't what you think it is. You're far away from home. All those other things. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because you want to make sure you consider those things.
And that actually happens a lot. Being in my time in Middle Georgia, this is a small city. They have a small Walmart, so the closest mall is like 30 minutes away. Now it's a central location in the state. It's like 2 hours to get to Atlanta, 2 hours to get to the beach, 2 hours to Vassell, so that was always a plus when recruiting. But I've recruited players personally that just could not adapt to small town life. Like it was just hard for them. So, and I guess there should have been more dialogue between that student athlete and their family as to, okay, can I really thrive in that type of environment? So those are all things that just need to be discussed.
True that, coach. All right, well, we're getting ready to wrap up, man. But before we do, I just had like a few last minute questions.
Okay.
The first one is, besides just the game of basketball, like what advice would you give to student athletes?
My advice for all student athletes, understand that when you go off to college, you kind of really are in control of, can't necessarily say what happens, but how you react to how you react to things that happen. I'm gonna say that. You have to be real mindful of who you hang around, how you carry yourself. You have to be responsible. I think that was the thing that I saw. Like, you come from high school or I guess, assuming a situation where, you know, your mom wake you up for school every day and make sure you go to school, and if you don't go to class, you know, they call your mom and she like, why you ain't go to class, and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of had somebody watching over you. Some programs don't have that. Some programs do. You know, you have a coaching staff that's really hands-on, where they make sure you go to every class. You know, they gonna remind you got tutoring at 7:30 and so forth and so on. And some coaching staffs are, you got practice at 2, you got class from 8 to 1, okay? I expect you to handle your business. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't have to come check on you in class. I shouldn't have to come check and make sure you're not doing nothing foolish, you know, in the apartment and dorm. And the reason why that's important is because some people just kind of lose themselves with that added freedom, and you know, and it ends up affecting them and your job. You know, basically when you get to college, it's a job. You know, so you have to treat it as such. Another bit of advice is be you. Be you. Don't get caught up in trying to be something that you're not. I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, don't try to be somebody else, you know, because then that just leads to typically just trouble. So just be yourself, be confident in yourself. Don't follow the crowd or do something you're not comfortable with just because you feel like you need to fit in. And that's just life in general.
So lastly, Coach, what sacrifices, you know, with anything that you want in life, you know, you aspire to make something come to fruition, there's going to be sacrifices that come along with that. So what sacrifices should these student athletes be prepared for, you know, in order to get recruited and make it to the next level?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I meant to mention that I feel like all high school athletes should be willing to sacrifice your spring break, especially with basketball.
Okay.
Because that's typically, spring break is after the basketball season. That's typically when most colleges are the most active with recruiting, as far as inviting you to campus for tryouts and visits and that sort of thing. And so, and it's always a lot easier for me to invite you on your spring break, because they don't have to worry about you getting out of school and missing instruction days or whatever. You know, I can just say, hey, come on your spring break. You know, typically colleges and high school are not on spring break at the same time. So we don't have to feel rushed. You know, you can get here, we can walk around campus, I can talk, you know, really get a feel for everything. You see how it is when people are here. So you gotta be mindful of that. Now, with that being said, on the flip side, when it comes to in between the lines, a bit of advice. Understand that a high school basketball court is 84 feet. College basketball court is 94 feet. Most high school athletes are not in shape to run up and down this floor. Okay, that's number one. Number two, be mindful of the fact that your season ended in February, maybe March if you were lucky. So be mindful of, if you know you want to play college basketball or college athletics for any sport, stay in shape. Because a month of sitting around playing, you know, doing whatever, if you doing whatever, you know, it's gonna affect you when you all of a sudden say, hey, I got this college tryout coming, and then the first thing we do is say, all right, 5-on-5, we going up and down the floor. Now after 2 or 3 trips, you gas. Nah.
Yeah.
And we all know when you playing this game of basketball, if you're tired, it's hard to show your skills. It's hard to show your skills. And then not only that, just also another bit of advice is, when you go to a workout or a college tryout, if you're going to be playing against guys that are on the team, understand they're not going to take it easy on you, because you're competition. Like, yeah, you're competition. So practice is competition, trials is competition. I remember we used to tell them, like, our job is to recruit somebody better than you. Your job is to prove to us that they're not better than you.
Gotcha.
And it's just a dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
So just going back to sacrifice, like, you got to be willing to sacrifice some of that fun stuff in order to put yourself in the best situation to get this scholarship. If it really means that much to you. You know, sometimes, like, might be a part on Saturday night. Nah, I need to try to get in the gym, get some extra shots up. Or I need to go run some sprints, you know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. So you gotta be willing to sacrifice something, because when you get to the college level, you're definitely gonna have to sacrifice. I mean, our schedule was twice a week, we had 6 a.m. lifts, 7 a.m. practice. After that, eat breakfast, go to class, then we may come back again that afternoon, or, you know, have study hard evening, that sort of thing. So when we got into the full thick of the season, like, it wasn't a lot of free time. So, you know, and you had to be mindful of, this is what I'm here for. Yeah, I want to enjoy this, you know, in my college experience too, but my priority, they have made an investment in me, so I got to return on my investment, or else you won't be back. Yeah.
Right.
So.
That's what's up, Coach. Well, do you have any last remarks that you want to leave with the Pro Dreams family?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Very important. Parents, you do play a vital part in the recruiting process, not only from the research standpoint, but you can actually prevent your child from getting a scholarship.
Talk to me.
Parents need to be mindful of how they behave in the stands and in the presence of other coaches.
Okay.
I'm quite sure if you've been to an AAU tournament, even a high school game, there's always that one fan or parent that's just constantly talking bad about the coaches or about the other players, or why you ain't putting my son in or my daughter in, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That can turn coaches off. I know, speaking for myself, when I was recruiting, if I go to the gym and the kid I'm looking at, I saw a kid where he was talented and I felt like he could help our program. But then the parent was in the stands with, "Coach, you don't know what you're doing," and all this other stuff. I was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with that headache.
Right. Man.
So unfortunately, the kid was good enough, but because of the parent, I chose to just find another athlete to recruit.
Wow.
So, and I just want to make that known to the Pro Dreams family, to anyone who's watching this. Like, everybody needs to be on the same page, and you don't want to do anything, even with the student athletes, you don't want to do anything off the court that's going to affect your chances of getting a scholarship on the court. So,
All right. Well, we appreciate you, Coach D.
Welcome, anytime. First thing, you want somebody that's honest. So that'll be number one, be honest. Number two is be somebody that really cares about you as a person, not just as an athlete. We tell athletes all the time, you use the basketball, don't let the basketball use you. I would say somebody that's demanding.
Okay.
That's gonna push you past your limits that you thought you had, and really see your potential and strive to get all that out of you. Be grades. The higher your grades, the more scholarships and financial aid you qualify for, the easier it is to come up with a game plan. And then mainly learn how to use social media to your advantage. Your friends list on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, needs to be college coaches in order to increase your chances of being seen. Another thing would be making sure your social media is clean.
That's a big one.
No explicit material, I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the AAU and high school coach, look at them kind of as your references. I really like what Corey Black has done for the game of Georgia basketball, but his mantra is D-free. So we don't get caught up in levels. We just trying to go whoever gonna provide it for free. So that is the ultimate goal. Don't get caught up in levels. Typically, spring break is after the basketball season. That's typically when most colleges are the most active with recruiting, as far as inviting you to campus for tryouts and visits and that sort of thing. And it's always a lot easier for me to invite you on your spring break, because they don't have to worry about you getting out of school and missing instruction days or whatever. I can just say, hey, come on your spring break. Typically colleges and high schools are not on spring break at the same time. So we don't have to feel rushed. You can get here, we can walk around campus, I can talk, really get a feel for everything. You see how it is when people are here. Thing for student athletes and their parents or their recruiting team is, until they put a dollar amount on it, treat it as interest.
And I was reading a statistic on the NCAA website that said that only 3.5% of high school students actually make it to the collegiate level.
Uh-huh.
And of that 3.5, they even broke it down a little bit further. 1% make it to D1, 1% to D2, and then the other 1.5 to D3.
My advice would be, you have to start with what's important to you as the student athlete. And what I mean by that is, do I have to play somewhere close where my family can come see me play, or where I can go home easily? You know, I don't want to be too far away from home. Is that a top priority to me? Is it a top priority that there are things to do on campus or either in the surrounding city, you know, where there are a lot of activities, you know, movie theater, mall, you know, maybe beach or you know, whatever. So that sort of stuff. Is the academic programs a top priority? You know, do they offer my major, or is that I'm kind of undecided, willing to go anywhere, you know, or, you know, so those are factors as well.